Welcome back to another episode of the Brick by Brick Young Entrepreneurs Podcast. I'm Luke Kramer here with Nathan Magnussen. Today we have a pretty special topic. We're going to be talking about marketing in the business space. I know a lot of you, including myself, when it comes to business, don't really know where to go when it comes to marketing. I think we all need it. We just don't necessarily know what to do. So today we have a special guest, a good friend of mine, Addy Combs. Very excited to have her. She is a graduate from University of Nebraska, Omaha. We've been friends since middle school, and she now runs a team over at Performance Digital, is the owner and operator of that company, has a ton of great insight to share. Addy Combs.
Yes, thanks guys. I'm gled to be here.
Excited for it.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about your story, being in business, coming from Gretna High School to going to UNO. What does that look like for you getting into business? How did you know you wanted to do it? Just share your story a little bit.
So yes, graduated from Gretna High School in 2019, and going into college, I wasn't 100% sure what I wanted to do. I think like most people, but my family's been in marketing for a long time. So I was very familiar with that space and wanted to just try out some classes in college. And the first semester was great. And I dipped my toe in and knew that was the direction I wanted to go. But then come spring of my second semester, COVID hit, and it kind of took the fun out of the college experience, but I stuck with it, and I just took as many classes as possible. Took a lot over the summer to graduate in 3 years because, after COVID hit, it wasn't, like I said, a lot of fun. So in, I'd say March of 2020, I started, we were fully online, fully remote in college, and wanted to get into maybe an internship. So I began my internship at Walnut Media, which is a locally owned media company here in town, which at that point just had radio stations, a couple in Fremont and some in Omaha. And they just were looking for some help with social media. And I think anybody young knows how to, get on social media and make a difference. So that's where they brought me in. And it was exciting. I learned a lot about radio and marketing, and I knew that wasn't where I was going to thrive moving forward, but it was a great experience, especially through college. And I would say not even a year after my internship began, I started meeting with clients and businesses that were advertising on the radio. And it was apparent that there was a hole in the market for a local digital marketing company to work with these businesses and not only implement these campaigns for them, but help them understand. Because if there's one thing about marketing, especially digital marketing, there is plenty of misinformation spread, and all the acronyms and the nerdy stuff that us digital marketers talk about is intimidating for some business owners, especially with the local small, medium-sized businesses that we were working with at that point. So I started, I knew a lot of people in the digital marketing space across the country. So I started talking to them and looking at how we can maybe bring this under the fold of Walnut Media. And that's when the creation of Performance Digital was brought into the mix. So it was just me starting out, I think like most people, and didn't know what I was doing. There was no blueprint. I say that all the time, but there was no roadmap to success. And it was a lot of trial and error, but we, gained the trust of some businesses that were already doing advertising on radio and transcended that into digital. And then over time, over the next couple of years, I brought on a team member and then another team member. And I would say the hardest part during that transition was, the company had Walnut Media. It's all legacy radio account executives, salespeople that lived and breathed radio for decades, longer than I've been alive. And I was not the favorite one in the office when during training I'm talking about all these crazy digital things. And I remember we were talking about TikTok, and it was then referred to as Tic Tac. And I was getting questions like, well, what even is a Snapchat? And it was, comical, honestly, but it took a long time. And I had to really learn how their brains worked and then model training after that. So that was one of the harder things to get through. And I will tell you that we're still not 100% there, but we're a lot closer than we were. So flash forward to today, we have a team of 6, 7 of us that work here locally. I have a designer in-house and a campaign manager, an optimizer, a photographer and videographer.
That's awesome.
And it's it's a real thing now, and it's pretty cool looking back on how we started. And sometimes I'll go on my hard drive and look at old proposals or branding stuff, and it is a little cringy, I won't lie, but it's cool because it's where you started. And I would be nowhere without the team that I have today. They're amazing and they're talented, and most importantly, they're passionate. And that passion is everything. When you're starting a business or whatever you're doing, it's important to be passionate about it. And these guys are incredible, and we help so many businesses now understand the digital landscape, and then put forth a campaign that drives them success. So we still work very closely with the radio stations on Walnut Media. Walnut Media is growing like crazy. The radio stations are seeing huge success in an industry that is kind of on the decline. We're seeing the opposite. So that's very cool. I'm still heavily involved in the radio aspect of things, but the complement of digital marketing to the Walnut Media family has been game changing. So that's where we're at today. Every day is a new day. We have plenty of challenges that come our way, but at the end of the day, we're here to help businesses thrive in this space and bring them success. So we have a lot of fun.
I think that's why I was so excited when you see her bringing her on, because right now I'm like we've had a lot of real estate guests on, and that's been the type of vibe. But it's like I grew up in digital marketing, so
you get it.
Yeah. So my dad, who's our CMO now, started an agency over in London. Probably 30 years ago now. And then I grew up just listening to him talk about it and heard about it. And I'm like, I want to bring this to Omaha. And I felt some of the same challenges of like, Omaha's behind with marketing. And there was like no digital marketing agencies. It was a lot of this is how we do it. This is how we've always done it.
Yep.
And it was like, and then when you come in, like when we're young, it's like, they look at us and like, oh, you're young. I don't really,
You don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah. Like, I'm like, come on.
Yep.
So that's why I'm so excited for this. So that's awesome. What challenges and obstacles did you have right when you started? Like, what was like something that's on your mind? I was like, this is like the big hurdle I had.
I would say that on top of the one that I mentioned, which is educating our sales team, that was, I would say, number one, because it's all fun and games if you have the back end of it all built out and ready to sell. But if you don't have anybody to sell it other than myself, the scalability is just not there. But one of the challenges that I'm still dealing with, every day is margins. And obviously a company's got to be profitable. And when it comes specifically to digital marketing and leaning more into the programmatic side of things, so placing display ads or connected television ads, things like that, there's a hard cost associated with everything because you got to place it on the networks or through a DSP or whatever. But that was challenging to me because I took accounting courses in college because you have to. Those not my strongest classes, and I'm a numbers person when it comes to like campaign metrics. Definitely not when it comes to analyzing a P&L and things like that. But I've been forced to learn, and we're getting a lot better. But that was one of the challenges was, when I'm talking to the owner of Walnut Media or the advisory board behind it, anything like that, there's no blueprint. There was no directions for me. It was, okay, yeah, do whatever you want and make it profitable. And that's, there were some challenges with that because for instance, connected television, that has some of the higher hard costs to it. And you don't want to price yourself out of the market. And when we first started, we tried to be, I was very aware of what everyone else was charging, and I wanted to be slightly under that because we're trying to grow our book of business and genuinely just help businesses. But then when you factor in salaries and rent and all of the things, you're working on pretty slight,
you got to make money.
Margins. Yep, we got to keep the lights on.
And especially when, no two businesses are the same.
Yep.
How do you, as a business owner, analyze a business and say, this is what I can charge them based on the service? Yes. Is it a flat rate, or is it, this is the product you want and this is the service that you're going to get for that? How do you look at each business individually, because they are all so different? That's
such a great question. And just to back up a little bit, I think why that was so challenging was, again, the rest of the company with Walnut Media was very used to, radio is pretty straightforward. There's not a lot of wiggle room when it comes to, it costs X amount to have a commercial played on Boomer Radio. Digital's not like that. It's very fluid. It's not cut and dry at all. And like you said, every business and their objectives are different. On top of who they're trying to reach and how much availability is out there, for impressions or what have you. And that was a struggle, not necessarily when discussing it with potential partners and clients, because it made sense to them. Everything top to bottom is customized. Our approach is to go into a business and I just want to get to know them. I want to know where the pain points are, what your objectives are for the year or the quarter, who we're trying to get in front of, what the call to action is, all of those sort of things to get a fundamental understanding of their business. And then we come back with a scope of work or a proposal, because it's not one of those businesses where you can just have a package in your back pocket and say, this is going to work for you and every other business in Omaha, because it's not like that. And not only is digital marketing like that, but marketing period is not like that. Messaging is changing and all the time, and where you place things and where the audience is. It's a very fluid and dynamic industry that our vision was to also be fluid and dynamic when approaching these situations. But that was difficult because, again, we need sales to stay alive. And if my sales team didn't necessarily understand that, then we're kind of shooting ourselves in the foot. So, there were some happy medium instances that we would, I could put out CPMs so that people could kind of price it themselves. But the most success that we have comes from doing it the right way, which is sitting down, understanding a business, and then based on our experience and our research, here's what we would recommend. And we'll put together a couple different levels of investment just based, whatever they're most comfortable with. But it's very, very fluid, which makes it even harder on the back end to budget things or to, project revenue for a year in advance. It's hard to know where the industry is going to be. I mean, when TikTok was banned for like 12 hours, everybody was in an uproar. And
I was part of that group, honestly.
I was too.
I clicked the app 7 times and it was,
I'm like, I can't believe this.
Shows my addiction.
Yes, honestly. Well, that's you and everybody else, but it's things like that, because the industry changes so frequently. It's hard to predict. It's been a lot of just trusting your gut and trusting what we do. And it's hard to know also, if we have some tactics like connected TV or native ads or whatever that are really taken off in popularity, but maybe have slimmer margins, then we need to offset that with some things with larger margins. And it's just a game every day. It feels like we're very fluid. That's how I would describe the industry as well as our business.
I feel like when I talk to a lot of young entrepreneurs, they, in Omaha especially, are struggling with like lead gen. Mm-hmm. So how do I get leads? I mean, that's one of the biggest things for a business is, where do I get these leads from and how do I do it? For you, when you started off, because when I started off my digital marketing agency, I didn't make $1 for 6 months. I made no money. It was bad. It's hard. That point of like fear, isolation, and I'm like, I think I want to quit. This sucks. But you just got to keep pushing.
Exactly.
So for these young entrepreneurs that are watching this, what do you recommend, or how do you get through that like first start of like, how do I get leads? What do I do? Like,
that's a $1 million question. And you're right on to mention persistence, because you have to just stick it through and see it, especially if it's something you're passionate about. If you're passionate about it, you're going to get there. There's going to be the ups and the downs. But like you said, going 6 months without making a dime, that's not uncommon. That's just a thing. And I was fortunate enough to kind of play off of our existing relationships with the radio. And that was the low-hanging fruit to us, because we already have established relationships. Bring me into the fold and let's just have a conversation. So we were able to stair-step our way there. Obviously, that we weren't going to build the whole business off of just that. We weren't going to, put all of our eggs in that basket. But I would say also, if, you got to be ready to do boots on the ground, because I think a lot of times when you're building out a business, you kind of expect it to all just happen if you do the right things on the back end, but it's so far from the truth. You have to be out there making connections and representing your brand, especially, when it was just me on the digital team. Every day was different, because I would be out in front of clients or doing networking events and doing the things that oftentimes get put on the back burner. I'm so guilty of that, to skip a networking luncheon because there's a client appointment or whatever, but you have to stick through it and create relationships and don't burn bridges. And sometimes that's hard, because there's instances where bridges can get burned, but it is always going to come back to bite you if you're doing things the wrong way. So sticking true to what you're passionate about and what you envision yourself building out would be, as cliche as it sounds, that's my advice, because it'll come to you. It just takes, you got to stick it out.
Well, it's cliche, but I think that's the truth.
It is.
No business, unless you get lucky,
Right.
you're not going to make money day one or even month one. So the persistence factor and dealing with that, I think the tying into the Walnut Media, having the radio side was,
Yes.
definitely helpful. But the education piece of all those guys, like, I don't know when the last time radio has ever had a change in the way they do things.
Right.
So bringing those guys along in the education, getting them on board had to be a struggle. And then saying, okay, we got these guys sort of where we want them. Now we have to go get new clients
Yes.
and build this out. So it's a lot. And I'm curious, do you have any, work-life balance? You hear the word balance in business a lot. I don't think it exists, but I'm curious for you, you're now running a team of 7 people. This is going to continue to grow.
Yep.
What does that look like for you? And how do you structure your days so that you have some time to go out and have fun with, Isaiah or your family or Milo and Coop, your dogs?
Yeah, exactly. Those are my priorities. But that's no day is ever the same, because you never know what's going to come up. And if you're a leader or a manager or an owner of something, you're kind of right there on the front line. There's no such thing as, I had somebody tell me that they don't have their Outlook downloaded on their phone because they only want to be in work mode when they're at work. And I respect that top to bottom, because that's important. However, if you're trying to build something, it's kind of 24/7. You have to be on. And my number one priority through everything, now that I have such an amazing team, is their happiness, is making sure that they're not getting creatively drained or they're, dragging along because they're not happy. That's I don't want to say a fear of mine, but that's something I'm very aware of, is their happiness. So I always am available to them at all times, because you never know what can come up. And marketing doesn't have office hours. Marketing is an all day, every day, night and day thing. So you have to be on. Now, work-life balance, though, I don't know if there's a right answer to that, probably somewhere, but especially when you're first starting out, you have to be willing to give up some of those things and your free times, or if your friends are going out. I remember when I was starting to build this division out, I was still in college. And so the Thursday nights was still a thing. And I felt very torn, because I'm never going to get these years back. And I should be there with my friends or with my family. But at the same time, I'm building out this business that needs my full attention. So you have to make sacrifices, and you have to be okay to make sacrifices. And this is not cut out for somebody who simply wants to just do a 9 to 5 or 8 to 5 and be able to turn their phone off or turn their brain off and move forward. You're always looking for new opportunity, always looking for ways to improve. And it is important, though, to, in the midst of all that, find time for yourself to recharge, because you can't keep going if you're deflated all the time. You have to bring that.
Leadership is an ongoing role too. So I'm curious, you talked about their happiness, making sure they're taken care of in your business. How do you lead well, and how are you continuing to learn how to lead? And what has that journey been like for you? Being a young entrepreneur, I think we have the same thing, we're 23, 24 years old. And it's not always easy being in that position to go and lead people, especially people that are older than you or maybe in the business longer than you. How do you manage that as a business owner, leadership, especially growing the team and making sure people are happy when you do it?
It's an ever-changing answer for sure. But when I first started at the company, I was probably the youngest by 3 decades. I mean, it was crazy. And they're amazing people. But I did have that sort of imposter syndrome that, why would these people listen to me? I'm in college. They know more than I do. But it's not about how much you know. But again, it's what I wanted to see happen was different from everybody else's vision. And I brought new ideas to the table that over time I just earned their respect. And I always felt like I had to work harder than everyone else to prove myself. And whether that's a good or a bad thing, I think it served me well in the long run, because I worked my tail off to get here, and now today, I will never ask my team to do something that I'm not willing to do. And I think that that's a good mindset for a leader because, again, sometimes you can let leadership go to your head and think, I have a team for this. They'll handle it. That's beneath me. And I will never do that. Though I am not a graphic designer. If my designer needed me to do something, I would. It wouldn't probably be good, but I would do it. And just this morning, had a magic eraser and was wiping some scuffs off the wall because, we have janitors and things that clean, but there's no such thing as a task that's beneath a good leader. And I'm hyper aware of that, and everybody on my team is different. They all have different personality styles and learning styles. And it's important that you get to know them as a person and what fuels them and manage accordingly. I don't manage the same for each of my employees because they're different. They have different goals. The different things get them fired up and excited. And I think it's important for leaders to not take the blanket approach, which, full transparency, I believe that I did when I first started out, especially when, for instance, training the sales team on digital. I was like, well, this is how I learned it, so why isn't this making sense to you guys? But over time, I learned their learning styles and pivoted my trainings to resonate with some. And then you start getting those aha moments. And I really transcended that into my team that I'm leading now because, again, everybody's different and you can't take a blanket approach. And I think that that's how you gain the respect of your team. And I truly feel that they're happy with what they do. And culture is important to us about, having a healthy culture and supporting one another. But also allowing them, if they need to go do something, or I had one of my employees just got a new kitten and she needed to take her to the vet in the middle of the day. Like, go do your thing. I trust them. I'm not a clock watcher. They're getting their stuff done and they're effectively. So if you need to butt out early or come in late some days, I'm very flexible with that because I understand that life happens. And I'm not going to be somebody who is hard on someone because life is in the way.
That.
Yeah.
I love that. Yeah, we're kind of the same way here of like, we don't do like, 9 to 5, you clock in, clock out. It's like, hey, get the project done.
Right.
Once you're done, if you get out of here early, fine.
Good.
You just stay late to finish it, you have to finish it.
Yeah.
So 100%. When you were going through a lot of those obstacles and the isolation you were talking about a little bit and that fear, we're big on finding your mentor and having someone kind of guide you. Was there anybody that you can think of that kind of stuck out of like, hey, this is my mentor, and they kind of helped guide you through those feelings?
Yes. Another obvious answer, and for the people watching this that know me, I would 100% say my dad.
Shout out Patrick Combs.
Yeah, he's the man. So we've always been close, and growing up through, in school and even in the first semester of college, I didn't have plans to work with him. Not that I didn't want to, but I just didn't, that wasn't something that I had really thought about. But I was involved growing up when I remember going to the different radio stations and all the different markets that he ran. And when I was little, super little, I remember vividly, and I probably could still recite it, but I used to do the Salvation Army radio commercials for the back to school backpack drive. And I still don't love doing radio commercials, but yeah, I have it in my blood and I've grown up with it. But he is by far the hardest working individual I've ever met in my life. And he inspires me every day. And he is the one that, though he's been doing this for 30 plus years, he's always learning and he never settles. He always is looking to be a better leader or a better marketer or, a better boss for people. And I am so lucky to have him. We're very close, and I'm blessed for that because he has shown me the ropes and has guided me along the way. And again, his work ethic is second to none, and I think that's instilled in me from a young age. And we always joke too because, handshakes are super important to us. And I know that my dad, we were just talking about this, at the ripe age of 5 years old, he taught my brother and I how you have a firm handshake and you look somebody in the eye and you
did give it a handshake.
Good. Okay. Make sure my dad heard that. Yeah. But that's just how we were, is first impressions and sticking to your words. If you say you're going to do something, you do it. And he exemplifies that every single day. And, he's the president of Walnut Media as well. So we work together every day. And that is one of the greatest gifts in my life, is to work alongside him every day. And That's another thing I will tell you, though, is when joining that Walnut Media, there was also that nepotism stigma. And I felt, again, not only was I the youngest, but now I'm the boss's kid. And talk about overcoming that battle. And nobody's ever treated me differently because of it, I don't think, but I've always subconsciously worked that much harder to make sure nobody ever is like, well, yeah, it's because, that's Pat's kid. And sometimes you think when kids work for their parents, they kind of have it cush a little bit. And anybody who knows my dad knows that is the complete opposite. He has the highest expectations of me. And I appreciate that, though, because he's made me work that much harder. So in terms of a mentor, he's top in my book, and I wouldn't have it any other way.
I think there's so many good nuggets in like the last 5-10 minutes of you talking about leadership and mentorship. Your dad is great. And I think you're touching on, like, as a leader and as a mentor, you have to continue to level up, and raise your ceiling, because if you have a ceiling, then the people below you have a ceiling.
Absolutely.
And when they hit that, where do they go as a business owner? They'll leave.
Yep.
So how are you in your business, and, your dad, obviously, you're learning from him as well, but how are you continuing to learn and level yourself up as a leader to go in, continue to provide for these guys and give them the tools that they need as they continue to grow and build? I
think that's a great question. So I am big on feedback, and we very much an open door policy. I am right there on boots on the ground with my team every day, but I've purposely created an environment that I trust that they feel comfortable to come tell me anything, whether it be personal or to do with business, or if they got another offer from somewhere, or if they're not happy. I truly do feel like they can come to me, and I use those things to better myself. So they're my report card on how I'm doing as a leader. And, I talk to them every single day, but doing structured, one-on-ones or reflections on the year prior, and how they're enjoying their job and how challenged they are. And they're very open with me about that. And if there's things that I can fix, they're the first to tell me, which I so appreciate that. I think there's a lot of books and podcasts that you can listen to that I'm not super well versed on. I would love to be more well versed on that in that regard, because I think it's different for everybody. Just like I was talking, everybody has a different learning style. The same thing applies here, because some people are super into listening to a podcast on their way to work every morning to get them in the right mindset. But sometimes it's music, or sometimes it's silence, or it's reading a book every night. And it's different for everybody. And I think that though I like to read and I like to hear from other leaders, it's way more about how you implement it in real time, and how you absorb how the people around you are feeling, and as, a result of your leadership, and never being too high in the clouds to not self-reflect. Self-reflecting is a huge, huge thing that not everybody has the capability of doing. But would be my number one recommendation as a leader, is to never get too far ahead or up in the clouds to not self-reflect, because you can learn a lot about yourself and the way that you can improve and take action. Nobody's ever perfect. Even the best leader in the whole world is still changing and still getting better. And I think everybody should be at all times.
Well, I think that's a hallmark of a good leader, is constantly trying to improve themselves and be better. And you touched on a little bit, a lot of the learning that I've done is through failed experiences, just going out and doing it. Part of it is you have to have persistence, go out and continue to do it, continue to fail and get back up and go again. And I think as a leader, having that experience and saying, I've done it and this is how I did it and it worked, or I've done it and this is what I would change, is a huge piece of being a business owner, because now you're speaking from experience versus just, hey, go do it. Like, how does that feel when, somebody tells you to go do something, you're like, have you done this before? Like, where am I going with this?
Right. And so it just feels like somebody's just giving you a task to do, rather than, every part of the business I've done before. Now, if I did it effectively, that's a different conversation, but you do it, and then you have almost like credibility for it. You're not asking, again, it goes back to not asking somebody to do something that you're not willing to do. If you're not willing to take a magic eraser to a wall in a Friday morning, then why are you asking somebody else to do it? And taking out, and I learned a lot of that from my dad, going back to him, because he's, a lot of times I'll walk into work and he's under the sink fixing one of the pipes that broke, or he's taking the trash out, and he's the first person. I locked my keys in my office the other day, or a couple weeks ago, and he's in there with a credit card trying to get in there, and it's pretty cool because you see a president or CEO of a company that's not beneath them. A lot of, unfortunately, leaders out there would have just called somebody or said, well, I don't know, that's not my problem, go figure it out. And he's not like that, and I won't be like that either.
No, that's huge. And I think we're all speaking from experience with, I work with my family.
Yes.
Nate works, his dad is our CMO, and he's become like family, I would say. You work with your family. What is that dynamic like? In business, it's not like a 9 to 5 where you go to work, when you leave, you just show up the next day and the work's there. You're always, I find, when I go home, I take this stuff with me, mentally, or I actually have work to do. How do you navigate that with your family? How do you separate it, I guess, because there is no balance. You're going to take it home. How do you guys navigate that as a family?
That's interesting because I'm not the poster child to answer that question. I'm not good at that quite yet. I've been working on it. And that's something that I know my mom and Isaiah could bond over, because anytime we're all together, my dad and I will just start going and talking about, oh, well, yeah, so-and-so did this and we need to remember to do this. And they're so used to it, and they're the best supporters, but I do think it's important to cut that off, and we try to implement, okay, we're going to get everything off of our chest for the next however long we need, and then that's it. Then we're going to cut it off. And again, my mind is always going a million miles a minute. So when I think of something, I just got to do it or say it. And so I'm not too good at that yet, but I think it's important. It definitely adds an interesting dynamic to, family dinners or anything like that I feel like I have to bite my tongue a little bit so that the whole conversation doesn't go to whatever at work. But they're huge supporters, and my mom is I would say our biggest supporter, because she's we unfortunately had our front desk person at Walnut Media had gone a different direction, and we needed somebody up at the front desk. So my mom comes in, and she filled in for quite a bit of time, and she's so positive and was so helpful and just always willing to do whatever is needed. And I think it helped too, because she was part of the group, like she was part of the team. And of course, when we put on Boomstock, which is a big outdoor 60s and 70s music festival every September, she's a huge part of that. And because that has historically kind of just rode on my shoulders. Even though it really didn't have anything to do with performance digital, it was just, I'm a detailed control person, so I just put it all on. But my mom is a big portion of that. So I would say that, my advice, take it with a grain of salt, but it's to not apologize for being all in your career. If you're passionate about something and you care so deeply about it that you want to talk to loved ones about it, don't apologize for that, but be mindful of the people around you, because it might get a little old. And I'm sure Isaiah would be the first to say that it might get a little repetitive every night when I come home talking about whatever it is that happened that day. But I think there's a fine line though, because don't ever apologize for what you're passionate about and what you're building, because that's cool. And if you're surrounded by the right people, they're going to support you in every way and want to hear those good or bad stories that you come home with every day.
Yeah, it sounds like Isaiah and your mom are kind of like a rock.
Yes.
That's how I look at it. Like, you got to have your rocks, right? Where you go home and like, they don't do what you do, but you can still talk to them a little bit about it.
Yeah.
And then you can just like, let it all be. So like my girlfriend, Rachel, 100%, she's the same way of like, I come home, talk. She's just listening. Yup. And then I'm like, okay, cool. It's out. All right. Now let's just not talk about anything. Balls work. Yeah. And then when my dad was here last time, he came for what, I think probably 5 days, and he left, and I texted him, I said, did we like talk about anything else but business the whole time you're here? He goes, I don't think so. And I'm like, Okay,
Interesting.
I guess that's how it is. And then Rachel yesterday, it was just funny. I was in the shower and she hears me talking there. I was talking to Alexa. I'm like, Alexa, write this note. And I start saying stuff. And Alexa's taking notes from me. And I'm like, man, what is wrong with me?
Yeah.
I'm like, I mean, so yeah, I totally get it.
You just can't turn it off.
No.
But those, like you said, those rocks in your life are so important because you're right. They don't do what we do. And my brother's the same way. He's an engineer in Kansas City, and clearly he got the brains, but he's also a rock and so supportive. And he's hours away, and the rest of our family works very closely together. But he's still so supportive and is always willing to listen and give advice. And I think that's the cool part is my dad and I are very, very similar, and we work very well together. But it's nice to get another perspective on things. And my mom and Isaiah and Carson are all Carson's my brother, they're very optimistic and positive people. And I would say my dad and I are a little bit more realistic, and we'll look at the good, the bad, and the ugly and say it how it is. And it's nice to get that sort of perspective as well, because they don't do what we do. They live completely different lives. But sometimes if I'm talking about an issue that I feel like is this big, when you talk to somebody who's going to tell you how it is, it's like, oh, okay, that's not actually that big of a deal.
Right.
I need to calm down.
Sometimes you just need somebody to vent to that is not in the same space as you. And, you have that conversation. You're like, I just need to get it off my chest. I don't need a solution. I just need to tell somebody about it, because it is easy to feel isolated in what you're doing, especially when it's go, go, go. Always. And you take it home, and Isaiah is going to notice, something's going on anyway. So I'm sure he secretly loves that you do that for him. Yeah. And your mom too.
They get all the tea. Anything that's going on, they know it all. But it's helpful too, because what we've, what especially Isaiah's implemented is, if I start going off, he's like, okay, do you want me to listen, or am I listening to give you solutions, or do you just want to vent? And that's been helpful, because sometimes, we not anymore, but used to butt heads because I would vent about something and he'd be like, well, why didn't you just do this? I'm like, you don't understand. Okay. I don't want a solution right now. And so that sort of starting off a conversation with what the expectations are has been very helpful.
Well, and I think, working with family and being on a team like that, like, you have to know we're on the same team.
Yes.
We're going to accomplish the same goal. I'm here to support you, especially when you have, like, in business, you have so many hard emotional conversations, because that's what it is. Even with the business owners you deal with, everybody has a different goal. Like, this is their life that they're building. So it can be very emotional. And if you don't have a rock in a conversation or a goal that's mutual, it's so easy to stray away from that and bicker about something small or pick it apart, versus just saying, hey, this is our goal. How do we align this conversation to fit that goal?
I like that. Yeah. Because we're all, in any situation, we got to establish a common goal. And like you said, with working with different businesses, because this is their, I work with local businesses, usually just directly with the owner. And that's one of my favorite things that I do is work directly with them, because I want to hear their story. I want to know where this idea came from, and what troubles they went through, and to see where they're at now. And it's very cool, but it's even cooler that they trust me with their passion. That's their baby. And they trust that we're going to do what's right for their business, or build the best website that we can, or represent them on social media as they would, represent it themselves. So that's pretty cool. But you're right to establish a common goal, because that's where you can, ruffle some feathers when it comes to that. Because you can, go into a conversation and talk about what you see as a vision for this business. But if the goals aren't aligned, then you're just going to butt heads the whole time. And that's applicable, I would say, in any conversation, depending on your whatever
100%.
Relationship.
Yeah, when we so we buy real estate, and when we go and buy real estate, we're not transacting, we're solving a problem.
Yes.
We're helping somebody get to the next step of their journey that they want to go on. And when we look at it, the client, per se, in your instance, is the hero of their own journey.
Yes.
And I'm just a part of their story. So if I don't understand what you're trying to accomplish, and I just say, hey, here's our packet of the services we provide, how are they going to feel? Are they going to pick and choose and say, Addy's my girl and I'm going to go with her? Or, when you sit down with them and have a conversation, they're going to feel like Addy understands me. Yes. She gets me. She's knowing what I'm trying to do, and she has the product to help me. I think the way that you look at that from your business is a huge part of why you've been successful, and the culture that you're building, that everybody has that same, alignment on. You have to have a why,
Always.
And I think that's something I want to get into with you is like, what is your North Star? How do you stay motivated on what you're doing? Because it is so in the weeds. Like, what is your thing that keeps you going?
I like that. I feel like I have so many answers to that question. And, right off the first thing that popped into my head was my team, because I talk about them, and you don't get me started because I will talk the rest of the podcast about how amazing they are. But they're relying on me, and everybody is bought into the same vision, the same goal, which is to keep growing. And we're going to get a new space and add people to the team and make this awesome brand and expand it even out of the Omaha area at some point. But they're kind of relying on me to be the captain of the ship. And that motivates me in and of itself, because like I said earlier, if you tell somebody you're going to do something, you do it. And that's how I view it. Is I have given these guys my word, and I'm not going to abandon them and have them figure it out or have them lose fate. So definitely my team motivates me. My family motivates me. And just I love the way that I grew up with my parents, who were so involved in my life. And my mom was fortunate enough to, most of my childhood, she stayed home with us and, was able to pick us up if somebody was sick, or if we had a snow day or anything like that. She was always there. And my dad was too. He traveled for work frequently, but he never would miss a parent-teacher conference or a dance recital or my brother's basketball games. And that meant a lot to me. And I think as I look to my future, that's what I want to provide for my family. Is I don't want somebody else to raise my family or be more involved in my future kid's life than I am. And I think that I want to pave that today. That starts now. And I to build something so that I have the freedom to do that. I don't want to be locked into a 9-to-5 and I have to request weeks in advance to be able to go to a parent-teacher conference or something. I don't see that life for myself, nor for my family. And I was very inspired by the way that I was raised, and I would want nothing less than that for my future family.
That was a huge motivation for me too. Like, if you don't do this stuff, you don't have the option. You have to go and get a job, because bills are bills. Things cost money.
Yes.
So, you pick your hard, right? You either take the 9-to-5 and you struggle with that stuff, or you go and struggle for a long time to have the option and have the freedom to go to a parent-teacher conference or go on vacation, have those experiences. So I think we're in alignment there on, like, it's not easy, but if you have a why and if you have a reason why you're doing it, it makes everything worthwhile. That's
what gets you through the rough patches too. When you have the lows, or you get bad news or discover something bad, and you're like, why am I even doing this anymore? And that's kind of what brings you back and gets you back to being excited. Is, no, I have a goal here, and if I start dragging my feet and being lazy and questioning whether I should be doing this or not, I'm just furthering myself from that goal. And staying on the course and staying persistent, like we talked about, is going to get you there with the right amount of hard work. It is hard work. There's nothing about what any of us do or any entrepreneurs that is easy. There's no such thing as this being easy, but man, is it worth it. It's so worth it. And I know that I'll thank myself in 10 years for working as hard as I do right now.
And I think about it, it's like, I tell myself this sometimes. I'm like, whatever I do is going to be hard. Like, if I do a 9-to-5, there's a lot of 9-to-5s that are hard. So why not do something hard that I enjoy, right?
Yeah.
Because no matter what, it's going to be hard. So I totally relate to you on that level. I'm also really interested in this property story.
Yeah, so at Addy, we used to go over to Addy's house all the time. I know you turned it into a rental for a little while.
Yep.
So you're in all facets of business, really, from marketing to investing. What did that look like for you? I know it was a rental for a while. I think you since have sold it.
Yes.
What was that experience like? And tell me a little bit about the reasoning behind that and what that looked like.
It was an interesting experience and one that I wouldn't give up. So when I first got into college, my first year in college, first semester and a half before we get kicked out, was I lived in the dorms. I wanted, in a lot of other areas of my life, I tried to speed things up. I was trying to be older than I was, and I wanted to just get through college and start doing something in the business world. But I told myself, like, I'm only going to go to college once in my life, theoretically. So I stayed in the dorms my first semester and a half. And then around that March 2020, maybe February, we had to evacuate the dorms. And so I went back to living with my parents, which it was never really a bad thing, because I obviously have a great relationship with my parents, but I knew that I wanted to own my own house. I wanted to do that. So it was a phenomenal time to buy a house back then. And so we found one that was pretty close to about 5-minute drive from UNO's campus. And it was perfect. It was a cute little home. And I lived alone for probably 8 months, and which I loved. You know, I didn't think that I would. I thought I'd get lonely. But it was amazing, because if the house was clean or if it was dirty, that was because of me. If the lawn wasn't mowed, that was because I didn't do it. And I think I learned a lot of responsibility from that. But then I brought in some roommates, which made it fun. It made it the college experience. And like Luke was saying, we hung out all the time at my house, and it was kind of the hub. And I wouldn't give up those times for anything, because we just grew so close in that time frame. And after I graduated college, I knew that the location where I was at wasn't long-term. It was a great college home, but you know, I at that point had adopted my dog Milo, who is my soul dog. He is everything. But we had a fenced-in yard, and he did what he wanted. But he's an Australian Shepherd, and I wanted to give him a bigger yard and just more to do. And before even moving out of that home, I adopted yet another Australian Shepherd named Cooper. And they weren't best friends right off the bat, I'll tell you that. But now they are. They're inseparable. And so I have these 2 high-energy Australian Shepherds, and my roommates had started moving out, and I knew that I wanted to move out west. My job was out west. My parents had just moved to Valley, and I didn't really have a reason to be in, central Omaha, near, Exarban Village. And so started the process looking at houses, and I knew what-ish I wanted, but I wanted to see what was out there. And I found a home in Elkhorn that I fell in love with. It had a big backyard, which again, my dogs...
Perfect for those guys.
Yeah, they rule a lot of my life. So I ended up buying that. And so I had 2 homes at one time, and I was starting, okay, this is a little overwhelming. And so we started, before even closing on my Elkhorn home, I'm like, we need to start the process of putting it up for rental, or doing what are we going to do with it? And I say we, it was me, but I like to say we, because there was a lot of people that helped me out. But so after I moved out to Elkhorn and cleaned up and fixed a ton of stuff at my first home, I put it out to see if there was going to be any bites for rental, and not a lot. It was kind of a little bit stressful, because every minute that went by that people weren't reaching out to rent it was another minute I have to pay 2 mortgages, and with 0 income coming in from that property. So we finally somebody got in touch with us it was a husband and a wife, and they had owned a business. They owned a business at the time, just down the street. And it was a perfect fit. And they moved in right away, and it was great. And there was no complainers. You always run that risk with rentals, that it could either be a nightmare or it could be just perfect. And so it was awesome for, I would say, maybe 10 months. And then unfortunately some stuff happened with their business, and they needed to get out like ASAP. Mm-hmm. And so they had to end their lease early and move out. And so I got in there, and it's not that they didn't take care of it, but not like I would have. All the outside, the mulch was gross, and the bushes and everything. So we spent hours and hours. Isaiah helped me a ton dialing it in, especially in the outside, and just getting it ready to rent again.
Yeah.
And at that point, this was almost, I wouldn't say a year, probably 8 months ago. And we didn't know what was going to happen with the election. We didn't know what was going to happen with the market, and it was kind of a scary time that I was deciding if I should sell it or if I should just keep renting it, because obviously I love real estate and the idea of building kind of that sort of thing for myself. But, I didn't feel like it was the best time for me to be a landlord. I can always buy another property down the road, but with, maybe some rules or laws or regulations coming out. And It's not in the best area of town. So, you know, it was just, nothing was fitting. A couple people came and looked at it, but nothing was really a good fit. I was holding on to it tight because it was my first home and I lived in it and I loved it and I had a killer interest rate on it. But I made the decision that I'd rather put that money towards my home in Elkhorn, and, you know, things were really, really crazy with my business and it was just not the right time for me. So, so we sold it. I sold it. It closed like November. So 4 months ago-ish.
Nice.
And it was totally the right decision. Part of me is still like, dang, I miss that home. There was plenty of crap that I had to deal with there, but it was the right decision, and very happy with where I live right now. And the dogs are happy, of course. And
That's what matters.
At the end of the day, if I'm not happy, the dogs are happy. So that's good. But yeah, it was definitely for the best. And it was a hard decision. Usually I'm a pretty decisive person. I don't have to think about things for a long time. That one, I was very out of character for me because I didn't know what to do. And
all the memories that were tied to that house. And I'll drive by there every once in a while, like going to a seller meeting or something. I'm like, oh, there's Addy's house.
Yeah,
I'll still call it that. But
always, it will forever.
I was just curious, you know, how your experience was with renting. And I think it's really cool that you got to experience that and go through that. You know, so very few people even take the step to go and do that. So, you know, taking the risk, huge props to you on that.
Yeah.
I'm curious. I want you to plug your business a little bit. What does Performance Digital specialize in? What's your bread and butter? What do you guys love to do? And who do you guys, you know, want to serve? Plug your business a little bit.
On top of that, I want to know your favorite industry, because that'd be interesting to me.
I get asked that all the time. So, okay, let me answer Luke's question first then, because I need to buy myself time to think about that. But my favorite thing about what I do, I love what I do. But I would say my number one thing is educating. I always say that in another life I was a teacher, because I love teaching and educating, especially in an industry that, like I mentioned earlier, there's so much misinformation. Nobody knows who to believe. And then you had AI and all the other acronyms.
Everybody's a guru.
Everybody. Yep. And there's so many digital buzzwords that it's annoying. And
it's really annoying.
Yes. And so, you know, how we started and how we're going to continue to be in this market is, I want to be the source of trustworthy information. Like, I'm going to cut through the crap and tell you what you need to know. And we can talk the talk if we want to get into the nerdy stuff, but business owners don't need to. They care about how it's going to help their business. And again, I want everybody to understand, all my clients understand what they're doing and where their money's going to, but you don't have to be a digital expert. Let my team be the experts for you. So I would say, yeah, we primarily work with small, medium. We have a couple large businesses too, but the medium-sized local businesses that don't have an agency per se that does all the media buying for them, but you know, they need to be doing something. Maybe they used to just spend their money on traditional TV and print, and they haven't got with the times, because like you said, it always felt like Omaha was just a little bit behind, and I truly believe that was because there was not anybody here to make a difference. There was nobody forcing them to learn
this
new
is
ways.
how I've done it. That's you always hear.
That's how we've always done it. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. But so we are really passionate about educating business owners, and you know, I do quite a bit of quote selling, but I've never considered myself a salesperson, because the way that we approach it is, like I said, going into a business, understanding their needs and where they're at, and then I just educate them and say, here's what I would do if it was my business. And here's a couple of options. And this would be very cool for this reason, and all these things. And if they want to move forward, they move forward. And it's never been a pushy sales thing. And I think that going back to what you said a little bit ago was the concept of being transactional versus relational. And I am a huge advocate for being relational, because again, this is somebody's business. These are these people's livelihoods. And I want to know when their birthday is, or that they just got married, or that, you know, whatever's going on in their lives, but also keep up to speed on the business and having that relationship that I know. I want to plug one of my favorite clients to work with is the Strategic Air and Space Museum, where I love those guys, and they put so much trust into me and into my team that at some points I'm like, dude, I don't even deserve this. Like you guys are I should be thanking you. But that's what a solid relationship looks like, because I talk to them more than just about their marketing. You know, we talk about the exhibits that are coming, or, you know, any of the issues that they're dealing with internally, or up and coming new things. And I genuinely feel like I am a part of their brand, and we have those relationships with dozens and dozens of businesses. And so I would say, I don't think that there's necessarily like a tactic or a service that's our bread and butter. We build killer websites. We do extraordinary, you know, programmatic sort of digital advertising to, you know, your target audience. The targetability of digital marketing is mind blowing, especially if you're not in the industry. The fact that we can target people based on, you know, what they're searching or what kind of car they drive.
And with geofencing nowadays, you know, you can drive. Like I drove by Chipotle and it's on my phone popping up all this stuff, and I'm like, yo.
Yeah, and you're like, that doesn't sound too bad.
Yeah,
it's this strategy behind, like, everything you can do with digital marketing is so exciting to me, because our team is very strategic, and so I love to do that. We do a lot of social media management for clients, and run their social medias on their behalf, you know, and it's so important that we understand their brand and their brand essence and their voice, so that we can accurately portray that on social media. So I don't think that there's necessarily like a tactic or a service that's our bread and butter. I think where we really shine is the relationship aspect of it and educating. I mean, it's as simple as that. But at some point, one of my goals is to become an adjunct professor, and meaning I have to go get my master's, but which I'm a little bit procrastinating. But I would love to teach the up and coming, you know, the soon to be professionals in the real world, just what I've learned and what to do and not to do about digital marketing or marketing in general. And I definitely have a teacher's heart, and so does my team, and now our sales team does as well. And that would be our bread and butter. Is I'm not gonna feed you a line of crap. I'm gonna tell you how it is. I'm gonna educate you as much as you want to be educated, and we're going to collaboratively make a decision that's gonna better your business.
Yeah, it's always fun to like meet them where they're at, because you go into it not knowing exactly like what they know. So when you meet them, sometimes it's like you have a guy who you walk into he's been a guru. He's like, you know, I've done all this, I've done blah, blah, we've put a lot of ad spend in. And you have some guy who's like, what's a KPI?
Yes.
And I'm like, what the? You've gotten pretty far.
I know. I'm like, I'm impressed by this. But yeah, it's meeting them where they're at, because unfortunately sometimes they've had a lot of experience and have worked with another marketing company that maybe wasn't 100% honest or didn't give them the right information. So you kind of have to reteach them, and again, just building that trust, because I could just be somebody who doesn't know what I'm talking about, but building the trust that, yes, we know what we're doing, we know what we're talking about, trust us, but it's meeting them where they're at, because there are some clients that they know a ton about marketing, especially digital marketing, and some of my partners don't know anything and they don't want to. They just say, here you go, handle it. And I love that. And I'm not trying to avoid the question, but my favorite industry to work with, I don't know if I can answer that, because we have restaurants, we have museums, like I said, we work with, you know, candy shops. We have
you guys aren't niche. You got everything, like an umbrella.
Yes, it's everything. And I think that goes back to our customized approach, because if we had a set it and forget it type of model, the plug and play, there would probably be an industry that it worked best for, because that's just how it goes. But because we do everything different top to bottom for every client, it just depends, and it depends on the relationship. I mean, if you were to told me 5 years ago that I would be as close as I am to the Strategic Air and Space Museum staff, I'd be like, no, we did field trips there. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
So cool.
It's cool, because, you know, you never would have thought, and you think outside the box on, okay, I'm working on promoting this museum, but I am also going to help this local steakhouse promote their Tuesday specials. And it's so different, but it keeps you on your toes. And
your favorite industry probably changes by every project you do.
Totally.
So.
Every day, I think it changes. But that's what's exciting, is I'm not somebody who can have the same day twice. Organized chaos is what we like to call it.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's just chaos, but I like to think that sometimes it's organized. But it changes every day. So I don't think I have a specific industry. I love all of the partners we work with.
It's good.
Yeah.
As we're, you know, kind of closing this up and bringing it to a whole, I know you have other stuff you're doing and focusing on, and you're busy. First, I just want to say thank you for coming on. It's been awesome. I've learned a ton, from you and about your business. And Addy is excellent. She's a great friend and person in general. So I want to hear a little bit about the direction you want to take your business, before we kind of close up. What is the goal that you guys have for, this year and the coming years that you're pushing for and taking action on?
So I would say, there, of course, I could be generic and say, yeah, we have revenue goals and we got to hit these budgets, but it's so much deeper than that. And I know that this year a big goal of ours is to lean more into being thought leaders in the industry, and especially in Omaha, because there's, again, like I said, there's not really that going on. And I know that the team is working hard on creating, blogs and newsletters and just offering more educational opportunities for our clients without necessarily like us going and selling something. We want somebody to, if they're following us on LinkedIn, I want them to learn a thing or two every once in a while, but without losing that local approach. What we want to do is take these big concepts of, big tech or any AI things that are going on and synthesize it to make it make sense to people who aren't in this space. That's what we always like to say, we make digital make sense. There's no the geek speak, none of that. And that's definitely a goal of ours, is to continue to lean into that and grow our brand, continue to grow our brand. Because like I said, when we started, we were just kind of like Boomer Radio's digital marketing division. And there was a lot, we had to work hard to overcome that. And I love Boomer, obviously. That's a soft spot in my heart. But we need to create a name for ourselves, and we're going to continue to do that, and on social media or on any of the channels, and utilizing our email list to email off, hey, once a month, here's some did you know things, and here's what's going on, and showcasing, my videographer is amazing, and showcasing some of those projects that we're doing. And I know that we talked about this earlier. We need to, and now I'm speaking it out to the world, but starting a podcast and keeping it short and saying, okay, well, here's the topic we're going to talk about. And if you're a small business, here's 5 things that you need to be doing that is no cost to you. And we do a lot of that. I do, in so many instances, I'll talk to businesses about things that aren't going to make me a dime, but it strengthens the relationship because I know it's what's good for them. So that would be, I'm already out of space at our current office. I literally can't hire another person right now unless they want to bunk with me in my office, but which nobody wants to do that. But so we're going to, move to another location and expand and just keep doing what we're doing and always finding new services and tactics that we can offer and just growing the brand, but again, not losing the foundation of why we were created. Just putting it, using a megaphone and getting it out to everybody. And I highly encourage anyone, and I would be the first to say, if you're doing digital marketing currently through an agency or another company, and you just want somebody to talk to and get a second opinion from somebody who's in the industry, I have a lot of conversations with businesses that say, hey, here's what I'm doing. Is it good? Is it effective? I don't know what the normal click-through rate on this kind of campaign is. And I'll look at it and I'll be completely honest. And there's been a handful of times where it's perfect. I wouldn't change a thing, and turning away business, but that's the right thing to do, is don't change anything. And as you probably know, moving, agencies or vendors you can kind of have a little bit of a dip in performance. And it kind of goes to if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And if you're happy with what you're doing currently and you want a second opinion, I'd be happy to do that. I
recommend you always get a second opinion, especially if it's a spot you don't really know that much. It's just like when we go to houses and we bring contractors in, it's like one contractor, because I'm new to the real estate field. When I brought a contractor and he could tell me any price, I'm like, yeah, man, sounds good. Sounds good. It looks like get more in there, get more bids. Yep. So it's the same exact way.
It is. And that's, you can apply that mindset into pretty much anything in life, but getting a second opinion is so important. And I'll be transparent with my opinion as well. If it's good, then I'm going to let you know. If there's room for improvement, I'm also going to let you know of that. So highly encourage anybody that needs help or just to learn something to reach out to me, because I love educating, and I'd love to grab coffee and teach people about what I know.
Gosh, that's amazing.
And yap.
Well, shout out Addy. I think if she didn't give you guys enough of a reason to, at least have a conversation with her, watch the full podcast. She's great. Where do people find you? How do you get contacted? We'll plug it all, obviously,
Awesome.
but where do you get contacted at?
I would say if you visit our website, which my designer just redid, but performancedigital.com, my information's on there. There's a form fill too, but my email will be on there as well as anybody else on my team as well if you wanted to reach out. But definitely check us out on our website. We have a Facebook and Instagram and LinkedIn and all of those things.
Everything.
So yeah, we're a digital company. We got to do it. But yes, absolutely reach out with any questions, or if you just want to have a conversation, I love to chat. Always.
Awesome. Well, thanks for coming on.
Thank you guys. I appreciate it.
I
This
had
was
a lot of
awesome.
fun. Yeah, I learned a lot.
Yeah, me too.
We'll plug all of Addy's information in the description below. Really appreciate you guys watching. Again, connect with Addy for any digital marketing needs, marketing in general. She's excellent. But we'll see you guys on the next podcast.